Hi, happy Saturday. It is Saturday night here. My kids are in bed, and so I'm really excited to start pouring tonight. I just got these bottles I bought. It's like a 12 pack of 8 ounces. So tonight I'm going to make new pouring mixtures with my paints. And I've got Floetrol, and we're going to mix it all up in here. It's so much better than like the little cups I've been using. I think then it'll store easier than the saran wrap that I was putting on top of my cups. So I'm really excited to get this going. I have so many awesome ideas that I want to do for the pours, new color combinations. I can't wait to see. Um, so I will kind of show you the mixing process. I'm still figuring out the mix that I like to use. Usually it's way more Floetrol and with some water than what I read, so I'm not sure if there's something with my paints or what, but we'll figure it out. Um, so let's get going. I can't wait to start, and I hope you like what we do, and let's learn something together.
Okay, so just to let you know, the first few minutes of this video are showing you how I mix my pour colors, um, and and then after that is when we really get into the flower piece that I do, the teal flower. So if you don't need to see this mixing process, then feel free to go ahead and just skip ahead a few minutes. But if you are interested in the process of how I make my pouring mixture, here's what it is. So I have the Floetrol, and I go ahead, and it's really important that you filter it somehow, whether it's cheesecloth. I actually just use one of my little kitchen filters, and then I also have that funnel there because I was making a really big mess the first time I tried to just go straight into the cup. So this really helped a lot. So the bottles I'm using, I just got them. They're in a 12 pack off of Amazon. I really like them because they show the ounce markings. So what I did for this one, I have 4 ounces in there. Now a lot of the ratios are 4 to 1. With the paint being just 1 ounce to the 4 ounces, I end up having to add more and more water. So for me, it's almost more like 5 to 1. But with this, I'm using the magenta, and it was kind of an older magenta too, so I think I used a little bit more water just because it wasn't a fresh color and the consistency wasn't perfect. Um, so, why this process takes so long is because there's a lot of stirring involved. So, first, I add a little bit of Floetrol in there, and then I add my color. I tried to add the color first, and I felt like it was really hard to scrape it off the bottom. Um, and then you're probably not supposed to do this, but I shake it. It's gonna, after you shake it, need more time to settle for air bubbles, and you're definitely gonna want to use a heat gun of some sort. But I mean, before and after the shaking, you can see the color difference is pretty perfect. Um, the best way to describe the consistency you want it to be is warm honey. So when that paint drips back in, you want it to just absorb into the rest of the paint. You don't want it to sit on top, and you don't want it just to completely be liquidy like water and be nothing, but you want it to kind of drip on top and then sink in with the rest of it. Um, it's one of those things where you kind of just need to do it a couple times and go from there and see what works and what doesn't work. One essential aspect I do is push pins in the four corners of my canvas. That really helps with drips. The first couple canvases I did not use push pins, and the drips by morning ended up sticking to the paper, and it just created a mess, and it kind of pulled the paint off, and that's fine. It was part of the experimenting process, but I learned this along the way, and it was super helpful. You can see I'm also pushing down. I want to make sure it's level and one push pin isn't sticking out further. What that will do is that would cause you to the paint to slowly shift overnight, so you may not even be noticeable. But then all of a sudden in the morning, you'll notice you have more drips on one side of the canvas off of one area. It's like, oh no, the whole thing shifted. And it happens to all of us, I suppose. And you learn and you move on. So this time I'm making sure I've got my push pins in place and they are level. And I'll make sure when it's dry, it's on level floor. So I squirt a bunch of my white. It's a titanium white, and this time I made it thinner than I normally do. Uh, every time I do a pour, I keep telling myself, okay, you gotta go a little thinner with the white. It was a little too gloopy, and so it wasn't as fluid as I would have wanted for letting the other colors flow easily. So I went light, and if it's too light and too liquidy, then that's fine. I'll figure that out when the end result shows. But for now, I think I was happy with it, and so I just covered the whole thing. And I went ahead and did the sides as well. So for this specific piece, I have just a string pair of plastic beads, and I cut it. It was like a necklace, so I cut it open so that I have one string of it. And I'm going to lay it, I have on wax paper, that way it doesn't create a giant mess. And so now I'm squirting my blue. It's actually phthalo blue, which is this beautiful, rich blue. And I use it for a lot. It's just a great color. So I squirt it on top of the whole section, and then I kind of roll it around a little bit so that it covers both areas. I kind of set it down. And now I'm just going to lay it on top and bend the first piece around. This is the first time I've ever experimented with this technique, so I'm kind of learning as you're watching. Now what I wanted to do was, tip, make sure your cap is off beforehand. So what I want to do is here, I'm squirting inside the parts that are going to pull down. What that's going to do is drag the darker blue through that aqua color, and it is magical. I was about to ruin it by jumping up and down. I was so excited, but I kept my composure, and there we go. Just this beautiful flower, feathery flower. I do cut between the feathers, just so you know. I went and rinsed off my beads every time. I believe there's one time, you'll see in a minute, where I decided to just see what would happen if I didn't rinse it off, but this turned out so awesome. I didn't want to mess it up with the second pull. Now I went actually longer because I realized I'm going to do more curves and see if I can get some more flowers through one specific pull. So I'm bending it around, back and forth, and here we go again with our teal. And I just do it on the underside where it's gonna run over it. So I don't go over top on the top parts because nothing's gonna drag through there. So every point at the underside of a curve. And here we go. It's also really important to pull slowly, and I use my one hand to kind of make sure the beads are staying on track and not just shifting in other directions. I want it to really stay in that line. And we rinse again. Lather, rinse, repeat, right? So I'm rolling it around in the blue that's already there. Why waste paint if there's some already on there? So I'm going to see. I don't even think, we're not even going to squirt any on there this time. We're just going to use what's there. And if we get a little less paint, that's fine, because the flowers are all different. This is kind of the fun part, is figuring out the placement, how many curves I can get out of that strand. Slowly pulling, just slow and steady. And that one turned out amazing. I got 3 awesome little flower puffs. And you can see they're less blue because I didn't give it that extra squirt of blue. So you have some darker blue at the top, and then the lower ones are more teal, which I think is really cool. It kind of makes them look unique. So now we're ready to add some more. We're ready for another healthy dose of the blue. I should also point out that I don't think I showed this in the video. with the white, before I even started doing these, I used the heat gun to get out air bubbles. That's really essential, so that if there's any bubbles under there, and you saw how I shook my paint, so we knew that there was going to be some. You want to do that so that you don't get a lot of bubbles in through there. So we've got a bunch more curves on this one. Let's see what happens here. It's a lot darker blue since I added more paint than the littler one right next to it, which is cool. Just slow and steady pulls. So at this point, I feel like I'm really getting the hang of this, and I'm thrilled with how it's turning out. So I'm going to add a little bit more at the bottom and a little more curves, which means they'll get a little tighter. Now here, I'm realizing that I didn't need that long strand because I don't have that much surface area, but I can't really do anything about that now, so I'm just going to use what I have. I actually started the bead off of the side just to see kind of what that would do. And we'll get tiny little baby ones. Now I did have to hold that because by making one of the beads go off the side, I needed to make sure it curved around. And it was needed. It created this really cool stretch to it. And did not wash off for this last one. I just went ahead and dipped right back in that blue. I have enough there. And I just have a little tiny pull that I wanted to do here. And so instead, I just go ahead and put a little of the dark blue on top. That way I'm not worried that you're not going to see any blue. And there we go. I am over the moon with how this painting turned out. It was my first time doing this technique, and I am just so proud of this painting. And it should just go to show you that if you're a beginner painter, this is totally something you can do. Again, I think the hardest part of pour painting is just making sure you take your time, mix your colors right, get them the right consistency. As a side note, I don't have any silicone in this. I didn't want to put them in my big bottles. I knew I'm going to use them for other projects, and I wasn't sure what those were at this point, so I went ahead and just went silicone free. It's just the Floetrol and the water all mixed together, and it turned out incredible. I'll show a close-up in a second. You can actually see these beautiful kind of cells. Oh, there I am dancing in the background. I'm so happy. So you can almost see the start of cells from white popping up a little bit. The titanium white, you gotta watch out because it will pop up through, so it's a tricky one as well. But it almost makes it look like it has these like bubbly sparkles. It's gorgeous in the close-ups. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it can inspire you to just go ahead and try something different that you haven't done. Try a piece of artwork and see how it turns out. You might surprise yourself. So if you like this, please leave me some comments, like and subscribe. I would love to hear your feedback or what you'd like to see more of. Thank you guys.